Hello, friends. We are podcasting section 3.2 in the AP Stats book. Went over two different problems in the two different classes today, and I thought I would put both on the podcast, reviewing the steps on the calculator that I showed to both. So some of the key concepts in this section that you see before you right now are illustrated in the problems. So the one we did in the one class was problem 3.32. This is in your book on page 205. And you've got a formula right here. And first and foremost, you should recognize this is the least squares regression line. So it's a mathematical model. They clearly got some data somewhere, and they did a linear regression. And so now, given any pH level, they can estimate how many weeks it took to get to that level. And if they're given a number of weeks, they can then estimate what the pH level will be. So we got 5 parts to the question. What is the slope of the regression line? Slope of the regression line is going to be right here, just like from algebra, okay? In algebra, you had y equals mx plus b. M was the slope, b was the y-intercept, the y-intercept was b. In stats, we have this model for linear regression. Now, a in this one is the same as b in this one, and b in this one is the same as m here. So this is my slope. And now the thing that's new in stats is that we have to interpret what the slope tells us. So in algebra 2, it was the change in y over the change in x. But in this problem, and in every stats problem, there's some real x and y. So the pH level goes down this much for every week that goes by. So that's your interpretation. Part 2 was to draw a graph over the same duration, and we did this in class with the calculator. So calculator on, and I'm going to put in the formula just the way it appears. Y equals 5.43 minus 0.0053, and I put an x in for the weeks. And then I can just go and decide what values make sense here. Well, the pH level starts at 5.43, so it can only be positive. So I'm going to start it at 0, and I'm going to go up as high as 6, and I'm going to have the scale be 1. So it's just going to be little tick marks every 1 on the scale. The weeks, I'm doing this backwards. The weeks go from 0 to 150. And I don't want to go by ones here because it'd just be a big blurry line. So I'll go by 10, as we did in class today. And then the pH values can't go below 0, and they start at 5.43. So I'm going to go up above that to 6 and make the tick marks 1. And when I hit the graph button, I get this line right here. All right. So I chopped the window in here to the answers, and I cut and pasted the graph, but I want to emphasize, I can't emphasize enough, when you make any graph in AP Stats, you've got a label, both in terms of the words that tell you what each axis represents and the numbers that are represented. So weeks from 0 to 150, pH level from 0 to 6, all got to be in there. All right, so probably the biggest part of doing these problems is to interpret both the slope and y-intercept. So in this one, what would the y-intercept be? Remember back to algebra, y-intercept was the value of y when x is 0. But in this case, the y is the pH level and the x is the weeks. So the y-intercept does make sense. It's the level of pH at 0 weeks, which was the beginning of the study. Okay, so you should be able to do this in any situation, be able to state the slope and y-intercept in the context of the problem. And then in part D, it said, what is the pH level at the end of this study? And I showed you the very groovy trick. Once I have done the regression line, now I've already put this in the calculator, remember right here. So now, once it's in, all I have to do is hit Y1. Let me clear this out. Vars, YVars, enter, enter, and then put in the X value, which in this case was 150 for the 150 weeks. And when I hit enter, there it is. All right, so that's problem 322. Next podcast we'll have 3.33.